Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of baseball. This time we're going to be talking about trading cards. So Vic, tell me how you got into baseball cards.
Okay, so I was into football cards since 3rd grade, and baseball cards were always available at the store back then for a dime a pack, and I never really bought any. I didn't buy baseball until, as you can see here, 1985 was the first time I purchased boxes or packs of baseball cards. And the reason for that was because at the time I was working at my godfather's liquor store, and he would let me buy them at cost. So I purchased cases of some of these, and it turned out to be a pretty good investment. You can see here, I haven't gotten rid of hardly any of my cards over the years. They're all in my collection, which is why we have close to 500,000 sport cards. And here's a little bit of what we have, some of the gems of the collection. In my experience, it was always about having the card. Didn't really matter what the condition was. Now, over the years, we've learned that condition is everything.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the value of something. However, I value having one more than what the monetary value of it is. So that's how this began.
And it says a lot. I mean, you really want to collect purely just for the enjoyment of it. You don't really
Right.
want to try to please others. I mean, a lot of people try to do that with all kinds of collecting. You know, they want to have like the most immaculate thing that you could possibly get, pay top dollar for it, but really it doesn't really matter, because what matters is that you enjoy what you got.
The joy of being able to touch something like this, Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
You know, I would never be able to buy a mint copy or even a near mint copy of this. Too expensive.
Yeah.
But I found one. I paid what I was happy paying for it. It's in terrible condition, but it is a gem to me.
Yeah.
So it is a proud thing to have in our collection.
And it's a piece of history, just like anything else, you know. And Jackie Robinson, I mean, he's the pioneer of baseball for breaking the color barrier.
Right.
Very,
right.
very important.
And again, I'm a little heavy in my Mickey Mantle stuff you see out here. He's just a hero of baseball of mine. There's others that I like to collect over the years. Big Mac right here, you know.
Yeah.
Being from the Bay Area. Him being an Oakland A, too bad he wasn't a San Francisco Giant. But hey, you got to support the local teams, right?
Yeah. As for me, I didn't really have that itch for like the baseball cards. I was more into like the football because, you know, my dad was more into that too. So I wanted to get into it, and it's easier to follow. In comparison to baseball, there's a lot more going on, longer schedule. It's harder to see what's consistent. Whereas football, I mean, it's shorter season, quicker turnaround.
And one of the things that deters people from following baseball is that what he hit on, it being such a long schedule, that it gets to the point where sometimes you almost feel like games are meaningless because there's so many of them. In football, there's a lot less games, and every one of them can mean you're making the playoffs or not.
Yeah.
So I understand how people sometimes don't want to follow baseball.
Yeah.
But when you get into the sport and you start following individual players and you're watching their at-bats, they get 3 to 4 at-bats a game, and all of a sudden they're on fire and they're hitting 3 for 4 for the game. And you know, when these guys were on their streaks and like right here, Dwight Gooden winning 20 something games in a season. Man, his cards were on fire in 1985. You couldn't get them anywhere. And I had cases of those people coming to me wanting to buy them off me. So back then, he was the guy, and Roger Clemens wasn't really anything. And then it turned around where Dwight Gooden fell off, and Roger Clemens became the hot guy. And then everybody wanted the Clemens cards, you know. And over the years, you see what happens to their careers, you know, with doping scandals, you know, and values drop. But you can't take their stats away from when they played the game. Because if you've ever played sports, you know how difficult it is to do that, whether you're in top shape or you're not.
Yeah.
And it is still a really tough thing to do.
All right, Vic. So who are some of your baseball heroes?
Well, you know, I've always been a guy who supports the Latinos.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. But Fernando Valenzuela, one of my heroes from the early 80s. Roberto Clemente. And over the years, you come to find out that even Ted Williams was half Latino, half Mexican. So, you know, some of these guys were great ball players, and it just gave you a sense that, hey, this sport, we might have a shot, you know?
Yeah.
And other sports, not so much. My height restricts me from playing basketball pretty much. My size and speed from playing football. So baseball was kind of a maybe, you know, but didn't happen for me. I couldn't hit the ball for anything. We support these guys, you know. There's a different variety here. Since we live up in the Northwest now, you can see how heavy we are in the Randy Johnson and Ken Griffey Jr. We support our local teams. We are Giants fans, though. And if it ever came down to it, the Giants playing the Mariners are going down.
Yeah.
So we're just that way, you know. But yeah, we definitely support the local teams and the players. That these guys are Hall of Famers and some really good ball players.
Some of the baseball players that are my heroes in modern era would be Buster Posey, Shohei Ohtani. You know, some of those type of guys. Past era, the legendary status would probably be Willie Mccovey, Willie Mays, Ted Williams, like my pops stated, Jackie Robinson. Just some of those iconic guys, you know, that really set the standard and went above and beyond in terms of the sport, giving what the fans wanted. I wish I gotten into baseball as a younger kid, because I don't know what my potential could have been.
Over the years, I've been blessed to watch a few baseball games. My godfather, may he rest in peace, took me to my first baseball game, and I can't remember who the Giants played, but it was at Candlestick, and got to watch some of the old timers there. And then over the years, we've gone to Mariners games. I've been to quite a few of the Giants games back in the day, and Oakland A's games. I watched Mark McGwire hit a home run. I've seen a lot of cool things. I got to watch Cal Ripken play, Cal Ripken Jr. You know, we get to see a lot of the Hall of Famers. And if you get a chance, you need to get out to that ballpark.
Yeah.
You know, tickets are not that expensive. You don't have to sit up front. You don't have to sit, you know, next to where the dugout is. You can enjoy that baseball game and take in a little bit of history in the sport.
Yeah. Like, we went to a recent game, too. I mean, that's kind of off topic, but we went to that Mariners versus Angels and Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. And he hit a home run. We saw it.
Yeah.
Like, that was cool.
Yeah.
Tax onto his record.
You're talking about future Hall of Famers there.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm talking about, is going and catching a little bit of history in those games. You never know what you're going to get to watch.
Yeah.
So, you know, most of the old timers were before my time. Many of these guys, their careers ended before I started watching baseball.
Yeah.
So just watch replays of when they played and how great they were. Pretty amazing what these guys were able to do.
That's the same thing with me. Like, I watch a lot of the highlights of, like, the greats, because, I mean, obviously I wasn't born around that time. So it's a little bit of catching up and just understanding, like, what they did for the sport in comparison to what it is now. I mean, people from back then, I mean, these legends out here, they had it tougher because they had to play a baseball game and then they had to go to work. Like, it wasn't just one thing. Like, now they're getting paid millions, whereas back then they still had to make ends meet.
A lot of these teams traveled on the road. Back in the day, you know, there wasn't a plane to take you to the next ball game. You rode in a bus for hours to get to the next stadium to go play your next series against the next team, you know. So these guys were beat up from the rides too, and still going out there and performing.
Yeah.
So hats off to all the old timers.
The next thing that we want to talk about is like the designing in like the baseball cards. I don't know if you guys noticed, but some of the older cards, they have a lot more illustration and design aspect to them. Whereas to like the more modern stuff, like in the 80s, 90s, they're not as colorful, not much design or thought into it. If you look at the old ones, like whereas this Jackie Robinson, I mean, you show a portrait of him and show him in action with the signature. I mean, that's really cool. Or even just like a Babe Ruth, for example. Has like a triangle, stars, everything. Make them pop, you know. Just makes it appealing to the eye. Just something that I admire about like the vintage baseball cards.
Yeah, and some of the companies are doing retro cards.
Yeah.
Through some of the series, but it's gotten pretty expensive to stay in the hobby. If you're still buying stuff today, it can be crazy, over $1,000 for a pack, you know, and they just produced it last year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, in my opinion, ridiculous. This is something that was created for people to enjoy. This was a part of baseball that you could take home and watch it on TV maybe, and have your favorite players out and say, okay, what was his stats last year? Okay, let's see what he does today.
Yeah.
You know, and nowadays, not many people do that. You know, my friends and I, we used to lay our cards out of the teams that we're playing. I'm talking football because I didn't really watch baseball. But we used to lay out our football cards, and that's how they got beat up. We used to not take care of them. Honestly, we just put them in our pocket and go to our friend's house, go watch a game, pull them out, see who's playing. Even threw them in the spokes every once in a while. Most of the time it wasn't stars, though. I never did that to any of the good guys that I followed. Some people did.
Yeah. And I'm sure they regret that.
Yeah.
But those are the memories that they'll always stick with you.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of like collecting. Now we want to talk about this particular card. It's a 1952 Mickey Mantle. It's not the real deal, but
it's a reprint.
It's a reprint, but it's super cool to just check it out because it's pretty identical to like the authentic one. But the crazy thing about this card is that it sold in auction recently for over 12 million, and that's like the highest record ever for like a card. It even beat the Honus Wagner, which is like a holy grail, you know, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, wish it was real.
Yeah.
I have a 58, 6 years off, but 1958.
But yeah, it's pretty incredible how like a piece of cardboard can be so valuable, you know, to someone. It's just aged cardboard if you really think about it.
Yeah, we recently watched a video where these Griffey Juniors, you send them off to get graded, and they're getting over $2,000 a piece for those in a PSA 10.
Yeah.
Now that grade is pretty hard to come by. You would have had to have really taken care of your cards and sleeved them up and put them into top loaders right out of the pack, and hope that they didn't have any print flaws from the factory to get a PSA 10. But those four went from pack to those right there. I took good care with those, and they're in good shape. I've never sent them off to get graded. Maybe in the future.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll probably decide and do that.
But as I said, we haven't sold very many. I've sold a couple of football cards out of necessity, not because I wanted to, but we just needed a little bit of extra change there, so we put a few up for auction. Most of my cards are still here, you know.
Yeah. And as always, we always appreciate you guys for watching our channel, Maldo's Madness.
Yeah.
If you haven't done so, subscribe to our channel. You're going to like what we're going to come out with in the coming weeks.
Yeah, give us a like and continue watching. We'll have some more cool stuff to show you. And you guys take care.
Yeah, take care. See you next time.